Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv and this is a podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. Today, if you're watching this, you might know that you're now on the know of the collaborations that I told you all lovely people that was in the works. So please welcome Amanda and Cristi Riley, co-founders of the Untamed Blossoms. Their podcast celebrates the wild and beautiful journeys of womanhood through the fascinating stories and insightful discussions shared by the lovely women from various walks of life. Their mission, to create a safe space where women can share their unique perspectives to inspire and entertain listeners, uplifting one another to do the same. I was a guest on their podcast literally just a few minutes ago. And if you want to go listen to their podcast, please, all of their information, their links, their descriptions will be in the show notes below. If you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, it will be in the description below. So go listen to episode 30. And it'll be great. Hopefully. I don't know. I thought I did pretty good.
You did awesome.
So now, without further ado, please welcome Amanda and Cristi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
We did have the best time with you. It will be the best episode.
It will be.
It's always lovely to have spiritual girl talk. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Especially as you get older.
We host a women's circle here once a month too. So we do full moon circle with women. So lots of spiritual talk during that time too. It's really powerful and healing. So there's a lot of good things that come out of that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit more about that before we get into today's actual topic?
It's at the Untamed Blossoms farm, which it's usually posted on the address is posted in Westerville, Ohio. And we have a little entertainment barn in the back, and that's where we host them, or we try to have them outside if weather is permitting. And is usually some sort of theme about what you're ready to let go and what you're welcoming in. And yeah, it's pretty powerful.
That sounds beautiful. I'm sure Lucy's
Open
a part
anyone.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Lucy is a part of it. She is.
Go watch episode 30 on the Untamed Blossoms to understand the inside joke, the layers, and the plot thickens.
Lucy is front and center, so she's out there watching all of it. It's great.
That's awesome. So, do you know why I've asked you both here today?
To talk about our spiritual journey.
Yes. Yes.
And because I'm called Juju and your mom is called Juju.
That's very true.
And it was Kismet.
So you guys reached out to me because I did a reading for one of your lovely friends. It was a pet psychic reading, and that's how we connected. And I read your awesome, super cool website page. I visited your website like any responsible host would do and was intrigued by the snippets of both of you and your bio information. So Amanda is a tarot reader, adores cats and everything witchy, and Cristi is a retired pediatric nurse, a mother to 6 children, 4 biological and 2 bonus kid, which I loved that you call them bonus kids. It makes me happy. As it's written, and you both host a lovely show where ladies can come and chat about themselves and their own journeys throughout life. But I'm interested to learn about how you two existed apart before you guys came together and created Untamed Blossoms. So I want to learn more about your spiritual awakenings.
Love that. Yeah.
You go first.
Oh, okay. No pressure. Yeah. So I guess, I grew up in a pretty small town here in Ohio, and I was very close to my grandmother. And she was sick from when I was a pretty little girl. She had some heart issues and she got diagnosed with cancer. But I still spent a lot of time with her, and she was very into Sylvia Browne. I don't know if you know who Sylvia Browne, a psychic, is. She used to show up on Montel back in the day, and she wrote a book about angels and spirit guides.
I think I read the spirit guide book actually. Like as a child, like 15, 16-year-old Olivia read that book cover to cover in one day in my mom's room because I found it in her room.
It totally probably was that time period for sure. Yes. You probably definitely read that book. Mm-hmm. And I mean, she was pretty mainstream. Like she was helping people solve cases back in the day. I remember her long nails and her blonde hair with her bangs. Like remember it so vividly. Right. And, we would watch her, and my grandma would read to me constantly. We were constantly reading together. 'Cause, again, she was very sick. And, we would watch John Edwards too, and his medium program that he had. And we just really explored in those things and dabbled. I was a big, watch the show Charmed and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And from a very early age, I was just very, very into all of that, And as I got older and when I went into middle school, actually, my grandmother passed away, and it was devastating to me. She had a Ouija board, and I remember sobbing and playing with this Ouija board. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone listening at all, but just desperate to communicate with her. And she was my connection to all of this. So I spent a lot of time away from all of that afterwards, just being really, really emotional, and kind of got back into it my senior year of high school, and was a weird kid who wanted to do spells and was getting dried flowers from, the backyard, and sneaking into the bookstore and going to the new age area, what books could I get about how to cast a spell? And yeah, that's kind of my origin story.
Were you trying to cast a spell on someone?
No.
Okay.
I remember getting the Green Witch books. You know what I mean? I wanted the craft circa 1996.
Propagated by events that were happening in middle school, early high school. And you were like, oh, this bitch is going down.
No, I very much wanted to call the Four Corners. I watched a lot of The Craft. That was my favorite movie. And I wanted to be in nature and know nature in a different way. And so that was kind of my origin story.
My turn?
Yeah, you talk about your origin story. I have a lot more that came after that, but that's definitely where it started. So
I think it's hard to talk about spiritual journey, and you prompted us to talk about the difference between a spiritual journey and a spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. And I believe they are two different things. And I think you can spiritually have a journey and never awaken. And that awakening process continues to happen, at least for me, on a mostly daily basis. Mm-hmm. But I would say my spiritual journey started as a child. And because I don't think they're not connected, is that, some people get very wrapped up in religion versus spirituality. And I think they're similar, right? It's a different dressing for a different belief system, but for a similar belief system. And the reason I say that is that I grew up in West Virginia in a very fundamental Southern Baptist church. Very fear mongering, very much, you should fear God, and that he is an entity somewhere in the heavens, someplace, and that hell is definitely a fiery, doomy place that you're going to go if you do anything wrong. But none of it really ever resonated with me. And when I say that I come from a large family, my mom was one of 10. And so everybody went to church. It was part of our social culture. So we were there every Wednesday, every Sunday. And this religion was, when you say indoctrinated, that's a real word. I felt very indoctrinated. I was baptized, you feel called as a child to go do what everybody else is doing. And, but it never also really fully resonated with me. It never really sunk into my bones. I always had questions. What about the dinosaurs? None of this 7-day stuff makes sense to me. What about science? None of it just added up in my brain, right? And I remember specifically, and I don't know if she's still alive, but if I tried to look her up multiple times. Her name is Dr. Lepp, and she was my high school English teacher. And I remember very vividly taking her religion course and her saying, well, how do you know that God's days was an actual 24-hour day? And it was as if my world had been blown apart. And I was like, what? We believe in the literal definition of the Bible, woman. Mm-hmm. This is how it goes, right? We don't question these things. But I had been internally questioning them. I had all these questions, and she, for the first time, validated that for me, that religion and spirituality is an interpretive dance, if you will, right? It's all about interpretation and faith and belief. And so it spurred me on a now, 30-year journey of figuring out what resonates with me instead of what I was told when I was little. And I think it's fascinating, and it's been a very fascinating journey of figuring out, especially as a pediatric nurse, you witness things in these hospital spaces that absolutely cannot be defined as anything short of a miracle. There's no explanation for them. There's no scientific medical reason for what happens to these children suddenly in front of you, right? And I would watch people from different religions chant. Some would pray. Some would hold hands in groups and cry, right? And so the energy was always the same, that if you really tapped into the energetics of what was happening during those moments, it was the same. It was the same thing, right? Like a collective energy was being sent to this one place, right? To this one child, to this one entity. And it was so powerful that you could feel it if you were paying attention and you were in tune to that, which I always have been. And I'm like, can everybody, like, the hair on your hand, like I would always be able to tell, like my hair on the back of my neck would stand up, the hair on my arms would stand up. I would get goose pimples everywhere. I'm like, whoa, what was that? Right. So if you're paying attention in those worlds, I was like, oh, I'm agnostic. I don't believe in anything, right? For a little while, I just pushed against all of it. And then you're like, wow, there's really something to this when you're really paying attention in these worlds that you can't explain. And to me, it's always been energetics. And so since then, it's been like everything has a vibration and energy. And that's really what I have learned to lean into, is that, all of these religions and all of these beliefs and all these things, in my opinion, are really describing different ways of describing the same things. And so I have a very religious family. And I remember one day saying that I didn't know if I believed it, that Jesus was the Son of God. And I mean, I could have been excommunicated in that moment. Like all the pins dropped, everybody got silent. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, is it possible that he was a Jew? Right? Like, these were the questions that I had, right? Like, he didn't believe that he was the Son of God either, right? Like, he believed in something completely different than what now has become a religion. And maybe he was just a really in touch human who really found God in all of the things, right? In himself and in the trees and in the weak and the weary, and taking care of people. But my family couldn't hear any of that. But that was part of my process of like really trying to figure out what it was that I believed and what resonated in my bones. And it has always come back to energetics. And like I say, I've just watched a bunch of different people and walks of life, and whether they have money or they don't, whether they speak English or they don't, 100 different religions. When children are sick, they all come to the same place. Mm-hmm. And watching all of these religions and all of these people all go through a similar process and having similar results out of it just made me believe that we're all here doing the best we can, making sense of it the best way we can. And it's all changing all the time. Mm-hmm. And being okay with that,
Yeah. So. 100%. Wow. Those are lovely stories. I have a question. Now, would you guys define yourself as more spiritual or more religious, or both?
I've never identified really as religious at all. Mm-hmm. I've always felt deeply spiritual. I remember, being in high school, and there was like the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I was like, well, I'm going to do this because I'm really bored and I think this would be fun. And my parents never really went to church, and I had friends who did. And I thought it was very cool to be a part of a group, a club, things of that nature, right? So I said, let me give this a go for a little bit. So I would go to church with them here and there. And I just always found it not for me. And I would always go back to doing much weirder things and thinking, you know, why would you be in this church when you could be outside? Like, why would you, you know, be talking to this one person when you could talk to everything and everyone? And it just never really called to me. So, I mean, I'm grateful in some ways to not really have the same origin story as many people do that I know that have been pressured to be in a religious, you know, atmosphere. I never really had that. So I definitely would consider myself much more spiritual.
Okay.
I too am spiritual. I would definitely categorize myself as spiritual instead of religious, but it's funny because it makes me but think about my mom, and my mom is still a devout Christian. But her whole life, Halloween is her most favorited. Okay. Yeah. Most favorited of all time. She still loves Halloween. Loves it. And loves everything about witches. Everything. And I'm like, and if you really believe in the witch, in Christianity, you know, demons and ghouls and witches are evil. Right. And so it never really like gelled that she loved this so much. And dude, when I tell you that she has this witch's outfit that is the spookiest, most realistic thing. And that she puts on the aesthetic makeup, the mask. What do they call this? It's not a mask. It's the prosthetic nose. It does prosthetics to her face and spends hours to transform herself. Like you would never recognize her in a million years. She paints her whole self green. She looks amazing. And then recently we've been able to have these conversations where I'm like, Mom, do you think that we have any witches in our lineage? And she goes, I definitely think so. I'm like, you know, you're really into witches. My aunt's really into witches. And, you know, so she's now able to separate a little bit from, and instead she was under the guise of this holiday, when really I think it's part of my history. I think it's part of our family's history. And I don't think that she's ever really been able to embrace that until recently, when I've been more explorative about some things that aren't necessarily in the religious world, right? And be like, there's nothing wrong with witches. Witches were women who were very fucking intuitive and amazing and mostly healers. Mm-hmm. And they burned them because they were afraid of them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, and I would categorize myself as the same. I am a healer. I am into all things energetics. And some people do think that that's witchy and woo-woo. And, you know, they don't think that that's real. I'm like, everything has a megahertz, like a frequency. Mm-hmm. Everything vibrates at a frequency. We are all energy, and energy has been proven. It doesn't end.
The third law of thermodynamics: energy is neither created nor destroyed, simply converted.
Correct. So what happens when we die if we are only energy, and we know that, right? Like, so yes, there's all these theories and all these things. And it's part of my human design chart where I'm just like, yes to all of it, right? Like yes to all of it, and being accepting of all of it. And people would get really upset. Like, oh, I'm sending you prayers for somebody who's spiritual. I'm sending you prayers. And like, oh, how dare they send me prayers? And I'm like, they're sending you positive energy. Mm-hmm. It's the same, whether they pray, they're saying it to a God, or they're just sending you positive energy. It's really all the same. It just has a different label in different rooms you're in, right? But it's really all the same. And that's really what my experience at the hospital taught me. It's all the same.
That's awesome. I really enjoy that. No, because that's very similar, if not almost exactly the same, to what I've learned just from doing this for 5 years and meeting so many other people, talking to their past loved ones in heaven, talking to animals, all of those things. So I do have a question though too. So Amanda, I also used to make fairy garden stuff. Like, you know, you get the flowers, the flower petals and you crush them up and you make fairy food. So I love it. I wish I could do that more now. I feel I feel like it's going to happen though, because now I have my son, so we can just go outside. He wants to do boy things, but that gives me all of the excuses to go outside and pick flowers, even though he wants to crush them. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, he's going to be making his own, stew of the plants. So you can really spin this however you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what's very cool about this. And, I remember being a kid and, we didn't have a lot of money, and we would say like, okay, we're going to make bird feeders. We would go pick pine cones from probably a park, probably places we shouldn't have been picking pine cones. And we would put peanut butter all over them and bird seed on the peanut butter and hang them from things so that birds and squirrels would come up and they could eat. And I just always remember thinking like, isn't it beautiful how everything that you need is just all around? You know what I mean? Like everything that the animals need. And, I'm deeply connected to animals and I love them so much, all of them. And just learning from a really young age that it was important to me to always have, like I had hamsters, I had parakeets, like my poor parents were probably like, when will she stop with these animals? But I couldn't. And I just recognized like being outside, being in nature, being with these animals are so, so important. And it still is equally as important today. So,
yeah. And I like animals, but I love children.
Yeah.
Right. So we always laugh. And I'm like, the way you love animals is the way I love children.
Yeah.
There's something about little children that I absolutely gravitate towards. And I'm like the Pied Piper. Like they sense that energy and they will all just be like, she's great. She's fine. And everybody's like, I'm like, yes, but I've also been a pediatric nurse for 27 years. Like I feel like kids just know innately when they're in a safe space with somebody. Mm-hmm. And so the way she loves animals, I love babies. Yeah.
I feel like I'm a combination of both of those things. You were talking about how you guys are becoming plant moms. If you don't know, go find the inside joke in episode 31 on Untamed Blossoms. But I am not a plant mom. My husband is a plant mom. Sorry. That thing back there, that is Roberto. He's the snaky plant. But I've never had a green thumb. It bothers me so much because I wanted to become like a green witch and have like all of the pretty herbs and spices and flowers. And if it's wildflower mix and I can just throw it on the ground and it comes up and I don't have to worry about it, perfect. Anything that takes more than that, which is I water him maybe once every 2 months and he's happier than can be. But when it comes to animals, and I've always been the youngest of my family, but now I have my son, I'm just like, the babies. I can't keep plants alive, but you give me an animal like that thing back there, it's great. That's Gatsby, by the way. He snuck in here, and my dog's on the floor too. So if it sounds like I'm farting, I'm not. She's just snoring.
It's the dog. She might be gassy.
I clocked the cat immediately and was like, what is the cat's name? I've been thinking that this whole time.
Oh, his name is Gatsby.
Oh,
he was my grandmother's cat. So
that's awesome.
But I do also want to say, Amanda, when you're talking about the lineage possibly or epigenetic theory that you guys have witches in your lineage, you're from West Virginia, right? That's what you said, West Virginia or Virginia?
I'm from West Virginia. I'm from West Virginia. Yeah.
Okay. Did I say Amanda? I mean, Cristi.
You did. Yeah. That's okay.
I apologize. So Chris, you're from West Virginia. I talk to so many souls that show me that they've grown up in like Appalachia. And I have talked to so many old grandmothers that are Christian, but they are, how do I explain this? They're very intuitively spiritual. Like we call it, like a kitchen witch.
Yeah.
Or what else? A folk witch. So it's like, do you ever feel the burning urge to, sweep the front of your house, like your porch?
Always.
Because in Appalachian folk magic, that is keeping all of the bad energy away. And that is, I don't know. I want to do this big old podcast where I'm able to talk to people like yourself and other people that are older that know about the Appalachian folk magic, because everyone was Christian, Southern Baptist, whatever it was, but they had so many things that they brought over and used in everyday life that it just, I don't know. Sometimes people today talk about their religious experiences and then completely don't even know that their great grandmother was doing all of these things, you know?
Right.
And
right.
still had a Bible. So
Right. And can be a little of both. And I think the feminine energy really in a nutshell is that it is the spirituality, the love leaders, but also they were the healers of their groups, right? So they had to use herbology and apothecary medicine, and that's what they had, right? So that was passed on, I feel like, from lineage to lineage on how to do that and what to use. And a lot of that has been lost. And I find myself as I adore where I worked. I adored my years as a nurse, pediatric nurse. I've been retired since 2019. I found a natural separation from Western medicine suddenly that really, I was being called to go in a more naturalistic way, and that was the new path. And so, although if my kid is in a trauma, breaks a femur, needs an emergency surgery, 100%, those are the places that you want to go. But kids need so much more than that, and so we weren't practicing in that way. And I was finding myself being more pulled from that kind of medicine into more naturalistic medicine, and got into essential oils. And that led me down a rabbit hole of, being able to use food for medicine instead of using antibiotics. And oh, by the way, there's an oregano oil that can do the same thing as amoxicillin. And, and we just didn't learn any of that in school. And I didn't know about any of that stuff. And then you find out that your grandmother talked about that all the time to my mom. And, and some of that stuff has just gotten lost over the years. And I think that we're starting to come back to some of that, as I feel like we're coming into a real time of women rising back into power and their own power. That's what our podcast is really all about, is women helping discover themselves and coming back into their own authenticity and power. And I do think we're sort of in that shift currently and I'm not saying like total domination by women. I'm just talking about coming into our natural powers and our natural abilities. And I think that that's coming. Part of that is understanding nature, understanding how we interact with nature and how to use nature to heal ourselves.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The emphasis on not taking over, but just stepping back into our power. It's like we had this space for such a long time, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, you need to have less space. And it's like, no. We're not trying to take more. We're just trying to come back and rediscover who we are and who we were. Right. I do have another question. So I do want to ask too, because I've had this question posed to me by other people. When you guys define your spirituality, because Cristi, you came from Southern Baptist, Amanda, not so much. I never really went to church. I went to Lutheran church with my friend sometimes with her 5 siblings when I would sleep over, but that's about it. So I've had people come to me. I've had a Muslim woman. I've had another person that was more like a Christian Catholic. And they said that now that they're on their own spiritual awakening, their own spiritual journey, they feel like they cannot associate with their religion at all. Like they don't want to be associated to Jesus. There's like portions of spirit guides in the way that I understand them that conflict with Muslim traditions and religious understandings. So when you define your own spiritual journey and how you define your spirituality for yourself, do you still accept parts of those religions? Like, is Jesus someone that you would want to talk to, or like a certain saint, things like that? Or are you completely stepped away from that and define spirituality different?
I mean, let's be honest. Jesus is probably a really cool dude, right?
Yeah.
He was hanging out with the people no one else wanted to hang out with, right? Mm-hmm. I got really into Buddhism when I was in college. Like I took a lot of religion classes just to like learn, because I like to learn those things. And, I loved that it was all about peace and not harming animals or any living thing. And if you look at, Egyptian religion and the god Horus and how similar that is to Christianity and how long ago that happened before, it's just all the same themes, right? So I know Cristi kind of touched on this when she was chatting, but it's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. And these people throughout time are just teachers. They're teaching something. They have something to offer. And the real lesson is we all have something to offer. We are all here teachers and being a reflection of the universe experiencing itself. So if you can look at every religion and person and spiritual leader or guide or saint and say, what is this reflection back to me? What can I learn from this person or from this entity? You're just allowing yourself to experience a different perception. And there's no need to distance yourself from something that's all part of the same source, right? Like it's just a different avenue to experience that source. And for me, it's nature. For me, Mother Earth and Gaia and, the connectiveness of the mycelium network, as silly as that sounds, and seahorses, the males having the babies, and jellyfish being the connectors of the ocean. Like it's so much more massive than we could ever experience. And all of it's out here to teach us a lesson. It's just how closely you want to look at that. And the more you past morality and good and evil and bad and saints and all of those things above the compassion and connectedness of everything, the further away you get from source, in my opinion.
Agreed. We're reading, we're part of a book club that's reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and we're studying it. And this last chapter talked about how we're all existing together, but in these different little microcosms, right? Like all the animals are, so the forest animals are in their little microcosm, and we're all coexisting and we're all the same. And so our good friend Sarah always says, like me, like when you're starting to throw shade on somebody, like me, right? Like me. And we don't see ourselves in that light a lot of times. And I was having this debate with a good friend of mine who's an older guy who loves to debate religion all the time, art. And he was like, he was having a hard time with current politics and administration and people that are being marginalized around the world. And I said, well, art, part of the practice that I've really been doing, reading this book, and one of the insights that this is the third time around. And by the way, this is the first time I've really come away with this. And that's why you reread and study things. And that's why I think awakening is always happening. As I said, we had lit a giant bonfire on the farm that night. And right before we lit it, a little bunny scurries out. And I was like, oh, I hope there wasn't any babies in there and that they're all got out safely. And that, it was right before we lit it that the bunny scurried off. But it dawned on me in that moment that we burned this pile of sticks that we had been piling up for months. Like it had been sitting there for a couple of months while we were doing all this big yard work that we moved in. And the debate he and I were having, and as I said, well, Art, how many insects do you think that I just killed by lighting this fire? Mm-hmm. Millions. I go, so in their world, I'm Hitler. Like me, right? Like we don't understand our impact on other microcosms all the time. And so although we can sit in judgment of other people, we very easily and probably have been the person, I ate chicken, I ate beef. I'm responsible for the death of that animal because I'm consuming it, right? Like how many times a day does that happen to me? And I'm going to sit in judgment of these people that we call evil. And there are evil in the world. And I'm not trying to justify evil, but we're all sort of on this path and we're all sort of doing all these things. And some are on a big platform and some are way smaller. Nobody knew or cared that I lit that fire and possibly nucleated millions of ants or insects or a whole microcosm that had possibly developed in there that I didn't know about. Right. And so it's when you start to connect those dots like that and go, wow, like me. And Sarah's always in my head when I'm like, want to be like that, being judgy. Mm-hmm. If you pull back and be like, wow, that's my ego talking. That's like me. How am I like that? Why is that bothering me? How am I like that? Why is that being reflected to me? And that's been really powerful for me this year. And I think and I agree with Amanda that we're all we're all on the same journey, man. We're all trying to figure it out every day and do the best we can, you know? So,
Yeah.
and if we can all embrace more of that and not killing each other because we have different religious points of view and we don't, you know, and that's the saddest part to me in human history is that continues after all of this time, is that we continue to just kill each other because we have different religious beliefs. That's really sad.
Well, like you both have already said as well, you know, it's all about perspective and perception. So Jesus may have existed. However, Jesus is just like, what is it? Like the Buddhist monks and like the Shivas and I'm probably misspeaking, but I know, what is it called? And I know Shiva was a person, but Shiva also had all the past lives because they section them all out, right? So it's just these people coming forward and talking about what it is that we're a part of. So usually when people ask me questions like, I don't know, one of the things that broke my heart was that the Muslim girl was telling me that she felt like she couldn't be a part of her religion if she believed spirit guides. And I had another person that told me that they completely didn't want to believe in Jesus anymore because they were embracing spirituality instead. And I said, you know, that's not what spirituality is about. Spirituality is embracing every aspect of religion and culture that feels connected to you. Just like we were talking about earlier with your connection to witches, even with your mom. It may be coming out in a it might be a more colorful way, less serious, but that doesn't mean that it isn't something that was associated to you, whether it be ancestrally or if you believe in past lives in a past life way. So you can be someone who's spiritual and rub elbows with Jesus. You could also be Muslim and believe in your spirit guides. It doesn't matter because that's the definition, or at least in my opinion, of spirituality. And it's going to be different for each person on their awakening and their journey. That's what makes it, you know,
I love
cool.
I love the artwork that has Jesus and Buddha and all, you know, Allah and all these people, and they're walking down a path in a garden, and it says we're all just walking each other home.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
Right? I love that. And you know, these are humans that figured out their connectivity to source. And whether it's called one thing or another based on your geography or how you were brought up or what you were made to fear as a child, like we're such complex creatures, you know, a human and the human experience, especially as a child. And I can speak heavily to that as a pediatric nurse for all these years, is that a child's experience can be so vastly different, and how they perceive the world and what they understand can be forever dictated by that. And that could be good and bad and indifferent. And so, you know, although this poor girl's like, but my family, like literally clan, what do they call that? Clan indoctrination. Like, you know, you're indoctrinated not to your religion, but also to your clan, your family. And your family can absolutely 100% disown you because you're gay, because you think differently, because you don't have the same religion, you're the black sheep. You know, and that's hard. That's hard for people to be in that position and not be loved by the people that are supposed to love them the most and accept them unconditionally. You know, that's a really tough spot to be in as a child. And to push against that even as an adult, most people have a hard time.
And that's going to shape your spiritual journey for sure.
Yeah, for real.
I had a friend who she was able to communicate to her spirit guides, and she would free write when they spoke to her. And I remember being like, what? You can communicate with these people? And I would sit there and like, okay. Where are my spirit guides? Where are they? I'm ready. I'm open. Talk to me. I'm ready. And I just like couldn't get anything. Like I couldn't tap into that. And I remember thinking like, it's so funny because so many people have this religious experience and talk about this, and I don't have that. I feel like I have these weird like spiritual failures that like fall upon my shoulders of like, you know, I have this like intense feeling that like in a past life, like I was leading people and I drowned. Like, I know that's silly, but like, I just have this thing where I'm like, I was leading people and I was drowning, and I had this weird throat thing in this lifetime because of this thing. And my just like desire to lead people and help them through things. Right. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask my spirit guides about this. They're going to tell me everything I need to know. And so I'm ready. I'm like listening, I'm waiting, I'm meditating, and nothing comes to me. So it's just interesting because no matter what, like if you're spiritual or religious or whatever, there's these things that you feel like you should be able to expect from your practice or, from people around you doing the same thing. And when it feels different from their experience, it can also be
invalidating,
isolating and scary. Yeah. Like, why can't they talk to me? I'm listening. I'm ready.
No. And that's a question I get all the time. People will ask me like, oh, how do you talk to your spirit guides? And I'm like, listen, come here, come closer. So many people, and like we were talking about in your podcast, episode 30, how people on TikTok, the TikTok trend of spiritualism and things like that. I feel like so many people have commercialized, but also marketed how they talk to spirit guides in a way. And this might be true for some people, but for me, I don't just like sit down and have a conversation like I'm talking to you guys right now with my spirit guides. And I feel like on TikTok, it's portrayed as that so often. And then there's this giant group of people that are like, well, I want to do that. And a lot of them make readings with me, which is fine. I love it. And that's what I'm here for. But I'm here to say, that's 99.9% of the time, that is not how I talk to my spirit guides. They are not just, it's not this ongoing conversation like how I'm talking to you. It's people ask a lot of times from things that are metaphysical, energetic, like how Cristi was talking about how you feel like the prayers and the energy. You're asking something that's not physical, but metaphysical to interact with you in a physical way. That is just, it's so hard. So I understand where you're coming from when it comes to that. I've never done the free writing or like, how people do like the trance writing. I'll take notes while I'm doing readings, but I've never really done that. So I find that interesting that that's how your friend was communicating with their spirit guides, but I'm sure your spirit guides are communicating with you. It's just not in
what's the guy's name? That's like psychic to the stars. Tyler. He's got a TV show. And when he starts to do a reading, he'll scribble, but he'll be like, on my way over here, I keep getting this repeated voice that's telling me da 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 da. And it's always the whoever he's headed, the spirits that are trying to communicate, but he scribbles a lot while he's channeling. Like he does a lot of scribbling action. So there's something, I think, to the writing activity, whether that's a distraction to the brain to sort of keep the portal open. Because I do feel like sometimes,
girl, I've been writing, I've been chanting, I've been walking through trees, I've been meditating, I've been sound bathing, I've been doing everything, right? Like
saying, maybe you just haven't found your thing to keep the portal open. That's
Could be.
Huh.
I believe in you. I believe you can do
Thanks.
it.
One day.
Just
I
keep
believe in you too.
Thanks.
Just keep practicing. We can do it.
All right. Now, oftentimes when someone makes a reading with me, I get other questions too, like when will I start my spiritual awakening? Can you tell me if I'm experiencing a spiritual awakening? What do I have to do to start my spiritual awakening? And when will my spiritual awakening end? So with both of your infinite amounts of wisdom, do you think a person experiences one spiritual awakening or like a one and done, or do you think it's more? But also I want to ask, like, what would you tell someone personally as your own markers? Like, how do you know you're about to go on a spiritual awakening that helps shape the journey of you?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. It's really
like, was there a time in your life where you were like, shit, the universe is about to kick my ass?
Girl, well, you know it. So I think it's interesting when I started really reading tarot. I just did it for my friends. I had a deck and I really got into it. And I would read for everyone all the time, be like, I am spiritually awakened right now. I'm able to read for people. And like, I for a long time would only do it to my closest friends. I didn't want to tell anybody I was doing this, right? Like if they saw me and they wanted to know about it, I would tell them, but I would never really promote it or talk about it because I was just so anxious about it. And I really did think that was my spiritual awakening. I thought, really understanding how to communicate and help people through tarot cards was me awakening to a gift and embracing it and all of these things. Turns out none of that was a journey. That was a journey step. That was a part of my path. But my real spiritual first of many awakenings was realizing that consuming alcohol and numbing myself to my life was causing me to not be able to experience any of it in a real way. You know, that was the first one. The second one was realizing, oh, now that you're sober, your job's killing you. What are you doing? You're like not even happy. What's happening here? And then I was able to listen to my mind and my body. And then I was able to get into myself and say, like, how am I really experiencing these things? And oh, by the way, why am I giving my energy to everyone all the time? Like, I have no protection of myself and my time, and I have no boundaries. I have nothing set in place to make sure that I'm okay. And I think we think of spiritual awakenings as these huge events or these like breakthroughs of like talking to spirit guides as an example, or whatever that looks like. But really what it is like tapping into source and being able to really understand what's going on around you and knowing that you're changing, and not just in a way of like, oh, I'm trying a new behavior, I'm stacking a habit. It's like, no, how you see things, how you observe things, how you interact with every living, breathing thing in the world around you. That change is an awakening. And once you start that, I believe it's possible to have an awakening every single day.
There you go.
Every single day. So
that's awesome. Like microcosm changes within yourself that change.
Yeah, you're like
all of
microdosing reality every day. When you're literally like experiencing things in real time and experiencing connection and relationships. And when you meet people and you, instead of start talking in your brain about the things you want to say, when you meet someone, you're like, oh, I love this energy, or this person I know I feel connected to deeply. Those moments are all awakenings. Like you're listening to your body, you're listening to source, you're connecting with people. All those things can happen every single day if you allow it to happen. It's when you're out of your body, when you're numbing yourself, when you're, you know, giving of yourself far too much and you're not able to connect with yourself. That's when you lose those awakenings. But man, once the first one happens and you can see the difference between a thing that you're doing versus a way that you're being, I think that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Very beautifully said.
I agree. Ditto.
Ditto.
Ditto. I think that it's, I don't want to say it's a term, spiritual awakening, that's getting sort of flung everywhere, if you will, right? That everybody wants to be awake. And I do think as a consciousness, we are leveling up. I do think more people are becoming more conscious and more aware. But I think the only way through that, and I think there's a lot of seeking that happens. I'm 100% guilty of that. And what I've learned the further I go into seeking is that it's really only all inside of me. And I keep seeking answers everywhere else. I keep seeking answers through a psychic, through a medium, through a tarot card reading, through other things. And really, they're just pointing you back to yourself, right? It's just a way to communicate with yourself. And so that's fine if that's what's helping you sort of start looking at yourself. And at some point you get to a place where you're like, wow, I don't have to go to the next retreat. Mm-hmm. I don't have to meditate. I don't have to go to a guru to meditate. I can meditate while I'm doing the damn dishes, right? It's in that's what Gandhi said, or what Buddha said, right? It's in the day-to-day activities. It's in the mundane, right? Is the everyday activities that you can be grateful that you're doing them and do them with love and joy for the people that you're doing them for. Can you see the homeless person the same as you? Can you be loving and kind to the person who's flipping you off on the freeway, right? Those are all exercises of being present and being loving, and also being loving and if that vibration continues, it elevates everyone around you. And if you've never heard of the power of 10%, it only takes 10% of a population, y'all, 10% of us to flip the whole crew around. So if 10% of us elevate our vibration and elevate our consciousness and are more aware, it literally can shift the entire consciousness of the planet. So when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like, what can I possibly do to help this planet? It's look inward. It's fix yourself. It's loving yourself. It's being 100% authentic. It's introducing yourself as a medium and being okay with that. It's telling everybody that, I do believe in all the woo woo stuff and that I don't really believe in what my family believes in religiously, even though I 100% respect it. Mm-hmm. And my loving, sweet, beautiful aunt sent me a letter one day and said, "I'm so worried about you. You are going to burn in hell because you don't believe in Jesus. And I am so worried about you." This is after her husband died. Now, this woman is stricken with grief, stricken. And if she's listening to this, Angie, and I love you, but she was worried about my soul. Mm-hmm. And my response to her could have been a whole lot of things, right? I could have met her with anger. How dare you? Right. And I was like, wow, thank you. Thank you for being worried about me. Mm-hmm. In her world, she was concerned for me. Right. And if we can just take that where it's at, and not that she's trying to push her religion on me, because nobody can do that, right? We can perceive that, but she can't really push her religion on me. You can't make me practice Christianity, right? I just said, thank you. I love you. I promise you that my relationship with God today is the best it's ever been. Mm-hmm. I've never been closer. So I appreciate you worrying about me. Thank you. But I'm good. I'm really good.
That's beautiful.
And her off on her way of love, just love her through it. Just love her through her scare tactics that she's learned all of her life, right? Like, I just don't need that energy, but thank you.
Yeah, I understand. I would say most people come to me and they'll ask me to confirm things that they've had, like experiences with past loved ones, with spirit guides, etc. And 99% of the time, what you've already perceived is exactly what I'm going to tell you. So many people just don't have the confidence in themselves that they're innately, intuitively connected and channeling the energy around themselves. And just, you are a person, you have a soul, you're a part of consciousness. So why is it so hard for you to be able to channel and receive that information? So I like how you said you have to just look at yourself, because everything is already coming from you. People can go to tarot readers and mediums, but we're just going to tell you the same thing that you already know. There's so many, like, Amanda, how many times do you give readings to people and they're like, "Oh, I just feel like I'm completely being blasted right now because I know all of these things about myself. But now that I have a perfect stranger telling them to me with these pretty goddess cards, I also it's more real now that you're telling it to me."
You're reading me for filth. Ma'am. You came in here knowing your filth.
You knew your filth. Yeah.
Hoping I would tell you something different because you didn't want to do what you knew you're supposed to be doing this whole time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So or
they really want it validated, and people need that external validation,
Which is that's why I find most of it is that, right? Like it's helping people feel confident in the things they know they want to do and need to do to move forward. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when a perfect stranger tells it to you, you just feel better about yourself.
Oh yeah.
How could they possibly know that? It must be the truth.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, my opinion is that life is made up of one spiritual awakening after another. Those subsequent tandem awakenings shape your spiritual journey as a soul. A spiritual journey is defined as a personal quest to explore one's purpose, beliefs, and connection to something larger than yourself, involving a search for meaning, purpose, and understanding of life's big questions. It's a process of self-discovery, reflection, and growth, aiming to connect with one's inner self and the universe. But I don't think it's necessarily as complex as when people come and ask us about it. It really isn't. What makes you happy? What do you look in the mirror and do you feel confident when you look in the mirror? And I know for me, I still struggle, and it's not because I don't think I look good. It's because of the other stuff down there. Like I've been realizing I've been trying to do affirmations, changing what your brain says about yourself. And I heard someone say, some woman, she said, you should name your brain when you have those unconscious hateful thoughts, like name it like Tammy or something. So when Tammy starts piping Karen. Up, you're like, shut up, Tammy.
Up there giving me some shit up there, Karen.
Yeah. But
I give it a sassy name.
Exactly. But I've noticed that when I try to do the affirmations in the mirror, that's actually really hard for myself. I can't do it looking at me. I can do it in my head, but looking at myself is much, much, much harder. But I don't think that, a spiritual awakening versus a spiritual journey is not as complex. It's not as black and white as some people may think. So you're just supposed to enjoy the ride of life, because life itself, your existence from birth until death, is one giant spiritual journey filled with one subsequent awakening after the next. I think I had one or two people that asked me like when they're spiritual, they made some sort of comment about a spiritual awakening. They're like, yeah, I'm done with that.
One and done, baby.
Yeah. I was like, really? Can you tell me your secret? It was really fun.
That's your ego talking. Your ego wants to believe that you're all finished with that now. All done. I'm finished. That shit was hard, right? Like, and it is hard. It's not easy. It's not, we have several ladies right now really going through that initial awakening process, and it's lonely. And it's hard and it's sad. And sometimes and everything shifts in your life when that happens. And you're like, it's like a wrecking ball in some ways. And so the memes where it says, I thought my awakening was going to be like all peace and love and sunshine and roses. And what it really was is me laying in bed for 6 weeks, snot running down my face, sobbing, hysterically realizing all of these patterns and relationships in my life that I was way not ready to really look at fully. And it's hard. It's a hard process, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it. I can tell you on the other side that I can really look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I could change some of these things, but I also love her. Mm-hmm. She's also brought 4 humans onto this plane. That's awesome. She's loved millions of children like her own that she took care of. She's a badass bitch. And I can look at her in full on and say that in full confidence. And I will tell you that when I was 27, there was even when I was 37, there was no way I could have done that. No way.
Yeah. That's something I've been focusing on too. Like when I started PsycKicks, I was just turned 22, and like 22-year-old Olivia versus 27, almost 28-year-old Olivia. So different. So different.
We say this all the time. We're like, we don't even know those people. It's like a whole different human. Like, it's like we're on a different plane. That's a different timeline. I don't know hardly any of those people anymore. It's really kind of strange, and then if those worlds ever come back and overlap, it's really kind of odd. And they don't know you at all. They know the previous version of you. And I've experienced that. And it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
When you meet those people and they're like, Rowdy Riley, you're like, oh, Chris, like that version of you that you're like, whoa, I'm not anywhere close to that. But
I'm still very rowdy.
Well, you're very rowdy Riley, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's that version of whatever it is that you're like, wow, that wasn't me. And that's not me anymore at all. But that's how that person remembers you. And I've had to really work on letting that go. If you see those people and be like, I'm not responsible for the version of me that lives in their mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if they would like to get to know me now, they will get to know a very different version of me. But
I do have one more question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Well, 2 technically. You can share share both of them if you want. First one, how did you guys come together? Because I know on your website it says that you guys aren't actually sisters, but you're like sisters at heart type of thing. But also,
she married my older brother.
We're sister-in-laws.
Yes. Oh, okay. That makes so much more sense. Oh, so
that's why we have the same last name.
Yeah, I didn't change mine when I got married. So my family's last name is Riley, and she married my older brother.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, much more simple. Then last question for your wisdom, because you are older than me, and I am always seeking other women's wisdom. But do you think? I know, Cristi, you made a short aside to this, but when it comes to spiritual awakenings, do you think that someone can just get stuck in a loop if they're not actually growing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Have you seen that before?
And I think that some people's soul journey might just be that, right? Mm-hmm. Like you get to a certain place and then, and there's people, and we know these people, there are souls on this planet right now that will from birth to death not change at all. Mm-hmm. At all. They're going to be the same person from start to finish. And that's just not my journey. And it never has been. And my life has played out very much that way from the beginning. And so I'm meant to do some big things and make big changes. And sometimes that was real shameful for me. That also meant that I outgrew 2 husbands, and I don't mean that to be like I'm better than them. we just grew apart, right? Like we weren't on the same path. So you can be like, well, she's on her third husband, right? And I had some real shame about that, but I've let all of that go, right? Like I am in pursuit of myself and happiness. And if we're not on the same page and we're not growing anymore, then I'm also not going to stay in a relationship that's not healthy, not happy, and we're both miserable and just going through the motions. And that's growth. That in of itself is awakening to the fact that you're different and you're paying attention and that doesn't suit me anymore. And it's time to lovingly let each other go. But I can also, we did an episode on divorce. I can also look at all my husbands and say, I learned a lot about myself from each one of them. Mm-hmm. And I still have love in my heart for both of them. Mm-hmm.
I see it. Okay. Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Okay. Portals, right? All these places, all these things happen at once, right? And I just think, okay, everyone wakes up in this world and they have a Doctor Strange portal situation going on. All of us do all the time. There's so many different avenues to take. And I think we spend all of our lives trying to figure out which portal to jump into, which decision to make, which path to take. And I think they all teach us something. And then in that new portal, there spurs a whole new bunch of portals, right? And you make the decision over and over and over again all your life.
I love this analogy. I
just believe that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think some people look at these portals every time they step into a new part of their life, and you have the option. See this portal over here to the left looks very familiar, very comfortable. I know when I walk through that, I know what I'm going to get. So I think I'm going to pick that one. This other one looks quite terrifying. So I'm going to stay away from that. And so I think you experience people who are constantly picking the familiar path, the familiar portal, the familiar feeling, the familiar behaviors. And that just puts a stunt on your spiritual growth. Like you can't expect to pick the same safe, comfortable feeling over and over again to expect an awakening or growth. Like you have to pick the scarier thing. You have to pick the unknown. And I think as long as you do that, I don't think there's a right path. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do things, but I do think you can get stuck if you're constantly picking, I know this pattern, I know this portal. So for me, channel my Doctor Strange and I say, okay, I'm in this new weird place in life. I can go back to this portal that I once knew and I know it's comfy and easy, or I can do the hard thing and who knows what that will bring.
Yeah. When she said, let's do a podcast, I was like, oh boy, no. Nope.
Yes.
That's scary. That's really scary. And then I said, that tells me that I need to do it. Uh-huh. Right. What about that is scary? We're talking to women what I love talking to women, right? Like there shouldn't be anything scary about that. And so I had to really face what makes me nervous. Do I not feel like I have anything worth sharing? Do I not feel like nobody will want to listen to me? As the whole imposter syndrome thing showed up, my not wanting to take up space as a caregiver and not wanting, I want to put myself out there. I don't want the trolls to come and say things about me or what I look like, what I say, all the things, right? I had all this doubt and I was like, okay, we're going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And she's been great in that I was like, okay, I haven't been sharing it. Like for the first 2 months, I was like, I haven't posted anything on my social media. We're doing the interviews. We did the LLC. Everything's moving forward. We jumped right in. We're in a little tiny room with a blanket over our head, trying not to record with echo. Yeah. All the things.
We were sharing a single microphone with our guests.
It was three of us. Hysterical. But we were doing it. And I was like, okay, but I haven't, she's like, you're not sharing it. But she didn't say anything to me. She didn't call me out. She was really loving and kind. And then I was like, okay, I know I called myself out. Like, I know I've had to say it out loud. I'm not sharing it on social media because I don't want, it makes me nervous. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing about you with mediumship, and now I was like, okay. And I remember going to the gym one day and I was like, I shared our podcast last night on social media. She was like, yeah.
I knew she'd pick the right portal eventually,
But I jumped into the podcast portal, even though everything about the safety, what I wanted safety wise was telling me no. Like, nah, I don't want that. Right. And she'll be like, we're going to be famous. And I was like, I don't know if I want that. You can have that. And so, but I'm here for it if you want it. You know, I'm the universe. Like Amanda wants to be, I'm here for it if she wants it.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Right. And just sort of trying to sit in my, and take the uncomfortable steps. And so now I'm like, you know, now I'm approaching people on social media where I'm posting all the things and I don't give a shit anymore.
And you guys reached out to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the mayor of a small town here in central Ohio, we just interviewed her the other day. And, you know, like we're just like throwing it out there and see who says yes and letting the universe decide.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Another a spiritual journey that you guys are going on now together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's great.
How many relationships did it take for you guys to come together and be sisters?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's like dominoes.
Exactly.
One just keeps falling and falling and falling.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we knew we were going to do something the moment we met each other together. We just didn't know what.
Yep. From the beginning.
That's
been
fabulous. Great. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda and Cristi, for being on the show today. It was lovely hearing about all of your own spiritual journeys. Yeah, of course. So PsycKicks, if you would like to listen to more of Amanda and Cristi and the beautiful women that host on their podcast, go to the Untamed Blossom podcast on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, YouTube. There will be a link below in the show notes or in the description if you're listening on PsycKicks Extra's YouTube channel. Amanda, you offer readings. They are the goddess tarot readings, right?
Yes. Yep.
Now, what do you usually cover?
So I do whatever spread you're looking for, depending on what you're looking for guidance. And, you know, I don't really do it like, I don't have like an official website, stuff like that. If you're interested in a reading, you can always
our website.
Yeah, you can reach out on our website or you can just reach out to me directly on Instagram at Amanda Riley Creates.
Perfect. And you guys also host a monthly circle. Wait, what was it?
Women's Circle, Full Moon Circle.
Okay. And you can find more about that on your website as well, Untamed Blossoms.
Correct.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for being on my podcast. If you guys want to listen to my feature on the Untamed Blossoms podcast, it will be episode 30. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll peace out.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.